VOA News. I'm Christopher Cruz reporting. A fresh wave of fighting erupted between Israeli forces and Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip on Sunday, leaving at least 6 Palestinians dead, just as Israel and Hamas had appeared to be making progress toward ratcheting down months of border violence. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, on an official visit to France, announced he was rushing back to Israel to deal with the crisis. Fighting has broken out in the streets of Yemen's key port Hodeidah between Iranian-backed Houthi rebels and Saudi-led coalition forces. A pro-Yemeni military official said Sunday the forces aim to, quote, purge the city of the rebels who control the port, where nearly all food, medicine, and other supplies for civilians are delivered. Humanitarian workers fear a disruption of those deliveries could mean mass starvation in a country that is already on the brink of famine. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Sunday the U.S. will hold accountable all those involved in the killing of a dissident Saudi journalist. He said in a telephone call that also took in the conflict in Yemen that the killing of Jamal Khashoggi in Saudi Arabia's consulate in Istanbul and the war in Yemen, which had pushed the country to the brink of famine, are two of the main sources of strain in the decades-old alliance between Washington and Saudi Arabia. U.S.-backed Syrian fighters resumed their ground offensive Sunday against the Islamic State terrorist group in the last territories controlled by the extremists in eastern Syria. The SDF said in late October it was temporarily suspending its campaign against IS in the eastern province of Deir al-Zor, accusing Turkey of jeopardizing its efforts. This is VOA News. President Trump joined more than 100 world leaders at a ceremony in Paris to remember the fallen soldiers of World War I. VOA White House Bureau Chief Steve Herman was there.
Buglers sounded an end to the moment of silence remembering the war's victims. French President Emmanuel Macron, in his address, warned of old demons reawakening a century after the First World War's end, saying they are ready to sow chaos and death.
Car le patriotisme.
Macron, in a message many will perceive as partly directed at avowed nationalist Donald Trump, added, patriotism is the exact opposite of nationalism. Nationalism is a betrayal of patriotism.
An outbreak of Ebola in the eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo has killed more than 200 people. The outbreak is in a conflict zone where dozens of armed groups operate. The Indian Army says 2 of its soldiers were killed Sunday when Pakistani soldiers fired along the highly militarized de facto frontier that divides the disrupted region of Kashmir between India and Pakistan. Pakistani soldiers on Sunday targeted a forward post in the Rajouri section along the line of control dividing Kashmir between the two rivals. The U.S. state of Florida has begun recounting millions of ballots using machines. The recount began Saturday, is to end on Thursday. Associated Press correspondent Julie Walker now.
In Miami-Dade County alone, there are some 800,000 ballots, and the process that began there Saturday evening could take days. The task is multiplied by 67. That's the number of counties in Florida recounting. The Secretary of State ordered the new review as narrow gaps between the candidates met recount criteria.
There's, in Florida's election for the Senate and the gubernatorial contest, very slim margins. The 2 Florida contests, along with those for governor in Georgia and U.S. Senate in Arizona, are the most high-profile races still undecided after this past Tuesday's midterm elections. Voters in the Kremlin-backed regions of eastern Ukraine voted Sunday for local government leaders. The elections have been denounced by Ukraine, the U.S., and the European Union. The European Union foreign policy chief said the elections are illegal and illegitimate, and the EU will not recognize them. Firefighters in the large western U.S. state of California are dealing with killer fires now. At least 23 people have been killed. Dozens are missing. One of the fires has become the most destructive in state history and the 3rd deadliest. Thousands of homes have been destroyed. More than 250,000 people have been evacuated. You can find more on these and other late-breaking and developing stories from around the world around the clock at voanews.com and on the VOA News mobile app. I'm Christopher Cruz, VOA News.